Matt Whitaker, former U.S. Acting Attorney General.
This is such a great conversation about America, our future, what's going to save our republic.
We have a great football player. Matt Whitaker is here. Matt.
They tried to bury me. They didn't realize I was a C.
It's a touchdown. Whitaker.
Former acting U.S. Attorney General.
Under President Trump.
I'm going to be an unwavering supporter of law enforcement.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice with your host, Matt Whitaker.
Welcome to CPAC Now. I'm your host, Matt Whitaker. I'm joined here with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to have you in Texas.
So you are really at the tip of the spear on a lot of issues. One is you have one of the most successful economies in the country. Texas has been growing, picking up people, picking up businesses, and that's exciting. But you're also in the middle of this immigration disaster on our southern border. And I want to talk about that first, and then I want to talk about all the good things that are happening here economically.
Sure.
And so you've been down the border, I'm sure, more times than you can remember. But what is the current state, and how do we fix it?
So, for one, the current state is bad and getting worse. The best way to fix it is doing exactly what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump implemented 4 things that worked very effectively. He had the Remain in Mexico policy, the Title 42 policy, he ended catch and release, and he built the border wall. And that led to generational lows in border crossings. Just 2 years ago, we had the lowest number of crossings in decades. Joe Biden gets into office, he eliminates those 4 things that President Trump put into place, and now we have all-time highs in the number of crossings. The people who are really empowered are the cartels, and it's really just disgusting that we do not have a president who even cares about the border. You know, he campaigned on open border policies. I think most people had no idea what that meant. Yeah. Now they're seeing the consequences of open border policies by the federal government.
Yeah. And reversing those policies that you just talked about, and that I was at the Department of Justice helping implement, and making sure that we had the legal basis to do all the important things. It just seems to me that to reverse those with no plan as to what you're going to do instead, they've been not only caught flat-footed, it seems intentional, but now they're going to repair border fence to fill in gaps. I mean, it just seems like it's an episode from Veep.
Well, listen, the president really is clueless, and has caused chaos. But don't be fooled about what he's talking about doing about building a wall to fill a border gap. He's doing that in Arizona, where there happens to be a Democrat senator from Arizona who's in a lot of trouble because of Joe Biden's open border policies. And this is a way that Joe Biden is trying to save that Democrat senator who can and should lose his job, because all Democrats who've supported this open border policy have done nothing but sow chaos in our country.
See, and that's just raw politics, which the American people don't want. They understand that there's Republicans and Democrats, but at the end of the day, they expect, I think, people to get things done for their benefit and not just play this partisan game of trying to win elections.
You used a word, you said they expect elected officials to work for their benefit. Yeah. What Joe Biden has done is work to their detriment. He's worked to the harm of the American people. And I got to tell you that there's already an early sign of the consequences of this. All of Americans now are beginning to learn who Mayra Flores is. Yeah. Mayra Flores is a Mexican-born, now American citizen who lives in South Texas, and she ran for an open congressional seat in South Texas, which is 90% Hispanic, and she beat a Democrat, and Democrats have always held that seat. So the Democrat Hispanics now realize they're no longer aligned with the Democrat Party, and they are joining the Republican Party.
So one of the great things that you've done as governor is sending buses of illegal border crossers to our major cities in the Northeast, Washington, D.C., New York City. Those leaders have been upset about that because now they have to deal with the problems that you're dealing with at a massive scale. They're dealing with a couple bus loads, and you're dealing with this at tens of thousands at a time. How is that either helping your cause, or how is that playing, I guess?
It helps the cause in 2 ways. First was the reason why I did it to begin with. I was in a meeting with local leaders on the border, leaders in communities of 10,000, 25,000 people, small communities where the Border Patrol was dumping off hundreds, if not thousands, of illegal immigrants into their communities. They had no way of dealing with it. And in that meeting, they said they were thinking about putting these people on buses to San Antonio. I said, don't do that. I said, I'll take care of it. I'm going to bus them to Washington, D.C. And so what we're doing is we're getting people out of the state of Texas, while at the same time, we're making Washington, D.C. grapple with it firsthand. You know, the elite liberals in the Northeast, they're more than fine as long as this is a problem that Texas has to deal with. They're for open borders as long as they do not have to deal with it. But when they have to deal with it, they realize they're incapable of dealing with it. So I think that we're finally opening their eyes.
Yeah, and it also proves that really every state is a border state now.
Exactly.
And you can sort of pretend like this isn't impacting your major cities, but it really is. And I think this highlights that uniquely.
Right. So there's another way that every state and every city is a border city now that you're all familiar with. And that's the record amount of fentanyl that's coming from China to Mexico across the border. And that fentanyl is going to every state and every city across America. There's been more than enough fentanyl already seized to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire United States of America. This is a deadly problem that we're going to be dealing with because Joe Biden does not care.
You're right, and I think that the families that are affected by these fentanyl deaths, each one is a unique tragedy, and it's something I worked on very hard at the Department of Justice. I went to China when I was chief of staff and met with their highest levels of government, and tried to negotiate a way that they would end not only fentanyl but also the precursors that they don't regulate. And President Trump had some agreements. Obviously, President Xi is trying to destabilize the United States. I mean, that's all. I mean, if you think about all of these things that are happening to our country, a lot of them have the fingerprints of the Chinese Communist Party that is trying to destabilize the United States and to make us less prepared to, match them in this global struggle.
It's a way that Xi Jinping can engage in war against the United States without declaring war against the United States.
Right, and this is something we need to open our eyes up. So let's talk about the economy, because the Biden White House is saying that 2 quarters of growth that is less than expanding is not a recession. Most economists that are fair-minded are saying that's the technical definition of a recession. Of course, we're in a recession. But Texas is resilient. And so, I mean, how does it feel to be sort of one of the economic engines of the United States in the middle of kind of Joe Biden's malaise?
So Texas truly is the #1 state for business in America. And don't take my word for it. CEOs have rated Texas as the #1 state for business for 18 years in a row. And during my last 4 years in office, more jobs have been added in Texas than any other state in America. So the jobs are coming here, the companies are coming here. Just 3 months ago, Texas for the first time became home to more Fortune 500 companies headquarters than any other state in the United States. And so we find that our economy is very well diversified and robust, whether it be in tech, healthcare, oil and gas, energy, whatever the case may be. We believe that we have a better chance of weathering a recession. Because of Biden's policies and because of the inflation, there will be recession for the United States of America. But I think Texas will have a better chance of being able to weather that storm than some other states.
Yeah, and you have, these massive economic engines. I'm in Texas a lot. I love Texas. Not as much as my beloved home state of Iowa, but Texas is a very close second. And I wonder, how do you continue that? I know there's been a tremendous amount of folks moving into the state, which obviously drives the job growth and kind of is a virtuous cycle. But how do you make sure, what kind of policies have you been able to implement to make sure that economic engine continues to benefit from the things that, low energy costs, a lot of available labor, and, plentiful amount of land and natural resources?
So you add all those things in with 2 other policies. One is our tax policy. And so to show you what our attitude is about taxes, we have not had an income tax, but we disdain it so much, we just passed a constitutional amendment constitutionally banning an income tax in Texas. So that means in the entirety of my lifetime, there will never be an income tax in Texas. Because our economy is performing so well, we're actually sitting on a surplus of $27 billion. That's with a B. Here's my point. We do have a property tax in Texas. I want to use a large part of that $27 billion, return it to the taxpayers with the biggest property tax cut in the history of the state of Texas.
Well, you know, I think one of the greatest compliments is when people copy what you're doing, and I know at least in my home state of Iowa, they've lowered taxes by 50%. They're doing all the kind of things that you're doing. So it's been my pleasure. Thanks for spending a little bit of time here on CPAC Now, and I look forward to seeing you again soon, Governor.
Thank you.
All right, that's been Governor Greg Abbott of the great state of Texas. You're watching CPAC Now.